Officer Larson sees just another black driver to intimidate, another easy target for a show of force. But what he doesn't know, Eric Porter wears a badge too. Internal Affairs. And Porter isn't just recording, he's building a case. Stick around, because when the bodycams roll, the hashtags rise, and the truth explodes online, Larson's badge won't save him. It'll sink him. Justice is coming, and it's got receipts. Let us know where you're watching from, and what time you found this. We read every single comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. In the fading light of a routine Tuesday evening, Officer Bradley Larson's fingers trace the polished edges of his badge, number 2471, a ritual that's preceded countless traffic stops across his 15-year career. The black SUV ahead barely registers on his radar, a mere 5 miles over the limit. But something about the driver's collected demeanor through his rear-view mirror sets his teeth on edge. "License and registration," he barks, his body camera's red light blinking steadily. The weight of his service weapon provides familiar comfort as his hand settles on its grip, a gesture that's become second nature, a silent reminder of authority that usually sends a clear message. The driver's steady hands extending the documents only amplify Bradley's irritation. "Step out of the vehicle," Bradley commands, his voice carrying the edge that's made countless civilians tremble. But this one doesn't tremble. Instead, smooth movements, practiced calm, and then the glint of another badge. Internal Affairs. Bradley's heart hammers against his ribs, but 15 years of practiced control keep his face impassive. "Is there a problem, officer?" The question comes with an undertone that scrapes against his nerves like steel on concrete. His body camera captures every second, every micro-expression, as his fingers whiten around his flashlight. "You crossed the double yellow back there," Bradley lies, the words falling from his lips with practiced ease. But the Internal Affairs officer's slight smile suggests something else. Knowledge, perhaps. Power shifting like sand between his fingers. The night air grows thick with tension as other vehicles slow, phones appearing in windows. Bradley notices but doesn't process the significance, too focused on maintaining control of a situation rapidly spinning beyond his grasp. His badge catches the strobing lights, each flash a reminder of authority now being questioned. Inner reflection. Power isn't given, it's taken. That's what Lieutenant Hayes drilled into him 15 years ago. Every traffic stop, every interaction, a chance to reinforce who holds the real authority. But tonight something's different. The familiar weight of his badge feels suddenly heavy, like it's pulling him down instead of lifting him up. The sharp click of handcuffs unclipping from his belt echoes in the sudden silence. Bradley reaches for them, a move made countless times before, but hesitates as he catches movement in his peripheral vision. More phones, more cameras, more witnesses to this unfolding moment. "Officer Larson," the Internal Affairs officer says, each syllable measured and heavy with meaning. "I believe we need to discuss your recent pattern of traffic stops." The words hit like physical blows, each one chipping away at the armor of authority Bradley's built over 15 years. A notification chirps from someone's phone nearby, #CopCheck already trending, accompanied by a clip of his earlier aggressive stance, his hand on his weapon, facing an unarmed Internal Affairs officer. Bradley's world narrows to the sound of his own breathing, to the weight of his badge now feeling like an anchor around his neck. What happens when the shield becomes a spotlight? When years of unchecked power meet their moment of reckoning? Drop a like in the comments if you've ever witnessed authority being challenged. The night stretches ahead, promises to be long, as Officer Bradley Larson stands frozen between his past certainties and the dawning realization that his badge might not protect him from what's coming. The patrol car's lights continue their rhythmic flash, illuminating a scene that's quickly becoming more than just another traffic stop. It's becoming his moment of truth. Officer Bradley Larson stares at his phone, the blue light harsh against his face in the dimly lit precinct office. His Twitter feed refreshes automatically, each ping driving another nail into his composure. The bodycam footage has gained 50,000 views in the last hour alone. 4 hours ago, he was untouchable. Now his empire shows its first cracks. "Just following protocol," he mutters, pacing between the filing cabinets where 20 years of complaints gather dust. His own file, thick with resolved incidents, sits accusingly on his desk. Each step echoes in the empty office. Most officers have mysteriously found reasons to be elsewhere. The isolation feels deliberate. Officer Larson's phone buzzes again. "Sergeant Martinez. Need to talk. My office. Now." He remembers a younger Martinez, back at the academy, nodding approvingly at his aggressive takedowns. "Show them who's boss," he'd say. Now that same mentor's message carries an edge that makes his stomach turn. The formal complaint from Eric Porter, the internal affairs driver he'd humiliated, flashes on his computer screen. Porter's words cut deep. "Pattern of discriminatory behavior. History of excessive force. Systemic abuse of power." The language mirrors academic papers he'd dismissed during sensitivity training. Terms like institutional bias and power dynamics that he'd laughed off with his fellow officers. His badge feels heavier today. Officer Larson pulls it from his belt, thumb tracing the worn edges. 20 years ago, at graduation, it had felt like a shield. Now it weighs like an anchor. The metal catches his reflection, distorting his features. "Have you ever watched your certainty crack?" he wonders, remembering countless similar badges, countless similar men, all believing in their own infallibility. Type cracks if you've seen someone's power start to crumble. The precinct's security footage plays silently on his monitor, a loop of this morning's confrontation. Each replay reveals something new. The tremor in his voice, the unnecessary force, the phones recording his dissent. Dr. Thompson's research paper from last month's mandatory training surfaces in his mind. Authority figures often escalate situations due to perceived threats to their status. He'd scoffed then. The irony tastes bitter now. His phone chirps again. The department's PR team. Trending on Twitter. 100,000 shares. Damage control needed. Officer Larson's hand shakes as he opens the app. Comments flood in, each one eroding his carefully constructed walls. Some defend him, just doing his job. But their voices grow fainter against the rising tide of outrage. A text from his partner. "Rodriguez. Laying low. Sorry, man." The same Rodriguez who'd backed his every call, who'd shared knowing looks across crime scenes, now distances himself. The thin blue line, it seems, bends before it breaks. The sun sets through his office blinds, casting prison bar shadows across his desk. Officer Larson opens his drawer, finding old commendations buried under incident reports. Each award, each Officer of the Month plaque, had reinforced his worldview. That force equals respect, that power means right. The academic studies he'd ignored flashed through his mind. Research showing how authority corrupts, how power blinds. Another buzz. Internal Affairs wants all his bodycam footage from the past 6 months. Officer Larson's throat tightens as he remembers other incidents, other confrontations, other moments where his badge had felt like a license rather than a responsibility. The pattern emerges, undeniable in its clarity. The hashtag keeps climbing. Larson Falls now reaches 150,000 shares. His name, once spoken with deference in these halls, trends for all the wrong reasons. The viral moment he'd dismissed as temporary now threatens to become his legacy. "Time to face the sergeant," Officer Larson whispers, standing slowly. His reflection in the window shows a man he barely recognizes. Uniform crisp, but shoulders slumped, badge gleaming, but eyes haunted. The walk to Martinez's office feels like a march to judgment, each step echoing with the weight of 20 years of unchecked power. Have you watched someone's world unravel through their own choices? Share your story below. The precinct falls silent as he passes, screens turning away, conversations dying mid-sentence. Officer Bradley Larson, who once owned these halls, now walks them like a ghost, the heavy evidence of his past trailing behind him like chains. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the precinct windows as Officer Bradley Larson sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen in disbelief. Social media erupted with footage from his morning confrontation. But it wasn't just today's incident trending. Past complaints, buried deep in departmental files, were surfacing like corpses after a flood. His fingers trembled as he scrolled through the growing thread of accusations. A black teenager from last summer, hands raised but still slammed against a wall. An elderly Hispanic woman, her groceries scattered across the sidewalk while he checked papers she'd already shown 3 other officers that week. Each incident he'd dismissed as routine enforcement now read like chapters in a damning biography. "Just following protocol," Bradley whispered, his voice catching as he ran his thumb across his badge's smooth surface. The metal felt cold, accusatory. Every glint of light from its surface reminded him of camera flashes, of phones recording his actions, of eyes watching and judging. Detective Martinez, who'd shared countless coffee breaks with him, walked past without a word. The usual friendly nod replaced by a stiff neck and averted gaze. Through the glass walls of his supervisor's office, Bradley caught fragments of heated conversation. Liability, pattern of behavior, internal affairs. His phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Officer Larson roles had evolved into Hasach Larson legacy, with each hour bringing new witnesses forward. Former colleagues from other precincts were distancing themselves publicly, their carefully worded statements leaving him increasingly isolated. "I was just doing my job," Bradley muttered, but the words evaporated in the hostile air of the precinct. The badge on his chest, once a source of pride, now felt like a target. Each passing officer's footsteps seemed to echo with judgment, their silence louder than any accusation. Looking at his reflection in the darkened computer screen, Bradley saw what others had always seen, not a protector of the law, but its weaponizer. The realization hit him like a physical blow, forcing him to grip his desk for support. A young rookie officer, one who'd once looked up to him, walked by, clutching a file marked "Internal Affairs, Officer Bradley Larson." Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment Bradley saw his own past reflected. The gradual slide from protection to persecution, the small compromises that had built his house of cards. His hand moved to his badge again, no longer caressing it but gripping it like a drowning man clutches driftwood. The metal edge bit into his palm, leaving an impression that felt like brands of guilt. Inner reflection. You know that moment when your certainties crumble? When what you called righteousness reveals itself as something darker? I built my career on what I called strength, but strength without justice is just another word for tyranny. Each complaint I dismissed, each warning I ignored, they're all coming back now, witnesses to my fall. Have you ever watched your fortress of justifications collapse, revealing the ruins of what you could have been? The precinct clock ticked past 6, each second hammering another nail into the coffin of his career. Outside his window, protesters had begun to gather, their signs illuminated by the setting sun. One caught his eye. Badge license to abuse. Type, truth hurts, if you've ever watched someone's power crumble. In the growing darkness, Bradley Larson, once the pride of the precinct, sat alone, watching his carefully constructed world unravel thread by thread, while his badge, no longer a shield but a shackle, weighed heavier with each passing moment. Through the precinct's glass doors, Officer Bradley Larson marches with manufactured confidence, his footsteps echoing off cold tile. Each step a desperate attempt to maintain the facade of control he'd carried for 15 years. The morning sun catches his badge, and for a moment he allows himself to polish it one last time, the brass warm beneath trembling fingers. The review board room stretches before him like an execution chamber. 5 faces, once familiar allies, now sit as stone-faced arbiters of his fate. His own face, grotesquely enlarged on the wall screen, plays out yesterday's scene in merciless high definition. Every sneer, every aggressive step toward the teenager he'd targeted. It all looks different now, stripped of the righteousness he'd worn like armor. "Officer Bradley Larson," Chief Daniels' voice cuts through the silence, each syllable of his name a hammer blow. "Would you care to explain your actions?" Bradley's throat constricts as he watches himself on screen, shoving the kid against the wall. The timestamp reads 1847, just 18 hours ago, when he'd felt invincible. Now, his universe has contracted to this moment, this room, this reckoning. "I was following protocol," he manages, but the words ring hollow even to his ears. On screen, his body camera captures his voice. "You think you belong in this neighborhood?" The review board members exchange glances that speak volumes. His phone buzzes in his pocket. Another notification about #CopCheck. He'd seen the numbers climbing all night. 100,000 shares, 500,000, now breaking past 1 million. His actions, his face, his name spreading across the digital landscape like wildfire. Chief Daniels rises, and Bradley feels 15 years of authority crumbling. "Officer Bradley Larson, pending a full investigation into your conduct and pattern of behavior, you are hereby suspended from duty." The words he'd feared most follow. "Please surrender your badge." Bradley's fingers trace the contours of his badge one final time, remembering the day he'd first pinned it on, bright with promise and purpose. Now it feels heavy with shame. The clatter of metal on wood resonates through the silent room as he places it on the desk, a sound that will haunt his dreams. Clatter. "I trusted you, Bradley," Chief Daniels adds quietly, disappointment heavy in his voice. "We all did. But that trust was misplaced." As Bradley turns to leave, his phone screen lights up with another notification. #CopCheck has become the top trending topic nationwide. Justice advocates call it a watershed moment for police accountability. Standing in the elevator, Bradley catches his reflection in the polished steel doors. For the first time, he sees himself as others do, not as the authority figure he'd imagined, but as something else entirely. The weight of his empty badge pocket pulls at him like gravity. Share this video if you believe no one is above accountability. Has power ever made you forget your humanity? Comment below. Cop check. The elevator doors close on Bradley's reflection, a man stripped of the power he'd wielded so carelessly, facing a future he never imagined would be his. Officer Bradley Larson stared at the golden rays piercing through his window, his empty uniform hook casting a lonely shadow on the wall. 24 hours had transformed his world completely. The badge that once gleamed with authority now lay cold in an evidence bag, destined for the police academy's new Power and Responsibility exhibit. His trembling fingers traced the outline where his badge used to rest over his heart. The morning news droned in the background, his face plastered across every channel. Former Officer Bradley Larson's case marks a turning point, the anchor's voice cut through his thoughts, joining a pattern of over 300 similar incidents nationwide this year alone. The statistics felt like daggers. Each number represented someone like Eric Porter, someone he'd wronged while drunk on authority. Bradley Larson's throat tightened as footage of his confrontation played again. His arrogant stance, his cruel words, his world crumbling as justice finally caught up. His phone buzzed. One unread message. Bradley Larson's heart pounded as Eric Porter's name appeared on the screen. The Reform Initiative needs voices who understand power's corruption from the inside. Your experience could prevent others from following your path. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. if you're ready to make amends. The former officer's hands shook as he picked up the framed photo of his academy graduation. I thought this badge made me untouchable, he whispered to his younger self. Now it's teaching others what happens when power corrupts. A gentle knock echoed through his apartment. Through the peephole, he saw the Reform Committee representative waiting with papers about the mandatory retraining program where his case would become a cautionary tale. Bradley Larson took a deep breath, understanding that his story's true purpose wasn't about his fall, but about preventing others from choosing the same path. Every badge carries two possibilities, he practiced the words he'd share in training sessions. It can shield justice or shield corruption. I chose wrong, but maybe by sharing my story I can help others choose right. The sunrise painted his walls in redemptive gold as Bradley Larson reached for the door handle, ready to begin his journey from cautionary tale to catalyst for change. Type 1 in the comments if you believe everyone deserves a chance to right their wrongs. Has someone's transformation ever changed your perspective? Share your story below. His final reflection would echo in academy halls. Power doesn't corrupt people. People corrupt power. But in acknowledging our failures, we find the strength to ensure others don't repeat them.